A common mindset that people have is that they are a part of the middle class. They may describe themselves as lower middle class, as upper middle class, but either way, people want to feel like they're part of the central group of Americans. But if we break that down, it's not possible for everyone to be part of the middle class, right? The reality is that there's a lot of people who don't qualify to be in the middle class on both ends of the spectrum. There's people who are below it who think that they're in it, and there's people that are above it that think they're in it as well. And it's easy to understand why someone who's going through some financial hardship would want to identify as part of the middle class, because that class is typically associated with financial stability. But I've also seen people who make $500,000 a year who think they're also part of the middle class. So for this video, I wanted to identify what the cutoff is for identifying as part of the middle class, and I want to discuss some signs that you may have already exceeded the middle class. And we'll also go over some specific steps to ensure you can get to that point. And one way to make sure that happens is to hit that subscribe button so that you can stay up to date on all of my latest videos. We're trying to get to 350 subscribers, so I would really appreciate it. Thanks. Before we dive into the reasons that you might be better off than the middle class, let's first try to identify who the middle class actually is. Well, that could probably be its own video if we wanted it to be, because we can dive into the specific data and get a very precise answer on what that is. But for this video, let's just keep things a little more simple. I don't think it would be unreasonable to assume that the middle class is made up from the middle 50% of individuals. So we're going to assume that for a particular financial statistic, those between the 25th percentile and the 75th percentile would qualify as the middle class. And obviously that's a big range. So for people on the lower end, that would be lower middle class. For people on the higher end, that would be upper middle class. But anything above the 75th percentile, we are going to define as upper class, which probably is not a perfect definition, but it should be sufficient in helping give us a baseline for what it looks like to achieve a status of wealth that's higher than the typical middle class family. And the purpose of this video is to show you that attaining an upper class lifestyle may be a lot more possible than you realize. The purpose of this video is not to put people down who are still in the process of finding their path and figuring out how to manage their finances. The reason for all these videos is just to teach you and show you what's possible. And while there's a bunch of factors that we can look into that measure financial success, income is often used as the standard indicator of financial well-being. And it's not my favorite metric, but it is very important in determining how able someone is to accumulate a good amount of wealth, as there's likely some correlation between how much money someone makes and how they rank against their peers financially. So to dive into income, let's take a look at household income in the United States. A household in the 25th percentile would have an income of $36,542 a year, which I'm not gonna lie, that would be a tough income to live on, especially if you were trying to support multiple dependents on that salary. So while that may technically put you within the middle 50% of Americans, which in a way is considered middle class, I'm not sure you'd be able to live a typical middle class lifestyle on that income. Moving up to the 50th percentile, a household living on that amount would be earning $74,202 every year, which is much more in line with my typical view of the middle class. Depending on your situation and how many people you're supporting, it should be very possible to live a comfortable lifestyle on this salary. It's not going to be fancy. It's not going to be a lifestyle that's over the top, but you should be able to support yourself and take care of your other financial responsibilities like investing and saving. But again, for the purpose of this video, we want to talk about how to exceed the middle class. How much would you have to make every year to be in the top quadrant of all earners in the United States? Well, the 75th percentile in the United States for household income is $133,451 every year, which is a great salary and should be more than enough to live the lifestyle you want to while setting money aside for investing and for retirement. Now, the reason I don't love income as a measure of financial success is that even if you do achieve this level of income, it's still very easy to increase your lifestyle and get yourself stuck in the trap of living paycheck to paycheck. This is the case for so many Americans who find themselves with expensive mortgages, new cars that are likely outside of their budget, credit card debt, and many other things. That being said, income is still very important when it comes to personal finance because you need money to invest money. It's not very easy to build wealth if we don't have any money to buy assets. So that's why income is still important. And also keep in mind that these numbers are looking at household statistics, meaning that these numbers don't necessarily represent just one earner. A household in the 75th percentile could have two earners who are making a little over $75,000 a year. Having a dual income is a huge advantage to building wealth early on in life. Obviously, not everyone is in that situation, and that's okay. If you're a single income household, it's likely going to take you a little bit longer to get to this point of being in the top 25%. But the good news is that there's a lot of careers out there that will allow you to eventually reach this salary. It might just take a little more time than those who are in a dual income situation. Another huge advantage when it comes to building wealth is subscribing to the channel. Again, we're trying to hit 350 subscribers, so I would really appreciate it. Thanks. Okay, now let's move on to my favorite metric when determining someone's financial success. Again, income is not my favorite because just because someone makes a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean that they have a lot of money. For that reason, I think it's a lot better to look at net worth when trying to determine how someone is doing financially. Net worth can be calculated by adding up the value of all the assets you own and subtracting the value of all the liabilities that you have. So assets minus liabilities. Some examples of assets are a house, cars, cash, stocks, and other investments. It's just anything that holds value. And liabilities are usually in the form of debt and can be things like mortgages, car loans, credit card debt, or any other type of debt that you may have. So for example, if your total assets added up to $300,000, but you also had $120,000 worth of debt, then your net worth would be $180,000. And keep in mind that it is possible to have a negative net worth if your liabilities are more than your assets. All right, so now that we've covered that, let's look at the data representing net worth in the United States by household so that we can see the numbers on how much wealth people in the country have accumulated. A household in the 25th percentile would have a net worth of $27,016, which is not super high, but anytime someone has a net worth that's positive, that's a good thing because it means that they don't have a hole to dig themselves out of. Remember, it's possible to go and take out expensive student loans and max out credit cards, which means that a lot of people start their personal finance journey with $100,000 or more in debt. It's crazy. So even if you're in the early stages of building your net worth, just remember that if it's a positive number, you are always in a great position to start building instead of catching up and filling in the hole. The median or 50th percentile net worth comes out to $192,084. For someone in their 30s, then they have a great start on their wealth building journey, but for someone who's a little older and is approaching retirement, then they might be behind, and I would be a little concerned. I think a big contributor to this level of net worth is the fact that a lot of people have equity in their primary home. Homeownership is considered a core element of the American dream and offers people a lot of stability when it comes to their housing. But it also works as an investment as people gain equity through appreciation and through paying off their mortgage. And I do think home ownership is an awesome aspect to personal finance. However, I do think it overinflates net worth in our country and makes people feel better about their finances than they maybe should. Because people definitely need to be focused on investing for their retirement as well. Because while having a paid off home is a huge added benefit to having a secure retirement, you're also going to need a source of income to pay the bills. But anyway, for those approaching the upper class, the 75th percentile for household net worth in the United States is $658,340, which is awesome. For someone who's just starting out with investing, that number might seem very overwhelming. But keep in mind that just because it's going to take time for you to build your wealth doesn't mean that it's that complicated or hard. For example, if you invested $500 a month at an 8% return, you would have exceeded this net worth after 40 years. Now, hopefully you can maximize your investments and contribute more than this and hit that goal earlier, but I just highlight that example to illustrate that it doesn't take rocket science to build your wealth over time. So if you're just starting out, are you going to have an upper class net worth tomorrow? Probably not, but it's very possible to achieve over the course of your working life. And you might be asking me, Connor, if it's so easy to achieve an upper class net worth, why don't more people do it? Well, it's a great question, and there's a lot of explanations out there, but it really just comes down to one core issue. People are not investing. Again, if you're investing regularly, it's very easy to exceed all of the numbers that we've talked about in this video. And it's very possible to achieve a multi-million-dollar net worth. Now, there are a lot of reasons why people are not investing, and some of those reasons are very valid. For example, a single parent that's battling poverty is going to have a much harder time carving out some of their income every month to invest. It doesn't mean it's impossible for them to get to that point, but they do have a lot of barriers in their way, and I fully understand that. However, there are also a lot of people that don't invest for reasons that I don't think are as valid. And the truth is that America is run by consumerism. People are constantly upgrading their houses, buying new cars, maxing out their credit cards. And over the last few years, we've also seen a lot of people increasing their travel and just spending money that they probably shouldn't be. The truth is, when you break it down, investing in retirement are just not a priority for a lot of people. And that news is really sad and really scary for me because people are eventually going to regret not setting themselves up financially. The good news is that these things are very much in your control. It's very possible to take initiative yourself to succeed financially. You just have to have a tiny amount of discipline. You need to not blow your whole income every month. You need to not take out stupid debt. Just need to start investing a regular amount of money every month. If you want to learn more about my mindset surrounding investing and you want to learn about my thoughts on personal finance, again, make sure you subscribe to the channel. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you hit that like button and we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.